We are interrupting this program for breaking news out of Seattle, where Adrian Diaz is out as the police chief. King 5 has confirmed with a senior commander at the Seattle Police Department that Diaz has been reassigned to a new role. Right now, we do not know what that role is. We've also learned through Seattle PD sources that Deputy Chief Eric Barden is also no longer in his position. Mayor Bruce Harrell expected to make what the city is calling a major announcement on public safety in just the next couple of minutes. We'll, of course, take that for you live when it happens. Here's a timeline of Diaz's time with the Seattle Police Department. He started as an officer in 1997, worked in patrol and the anti-crime unit before moving to the Investigations Bureau. Diaz promoted to lieutenant in 2014, then assistant chief in 2018. He was the deputy chief just before he took over for former police chief Carmen Best following the nationwide protest that we saw over policing in 2020. At that time, he was named interim chief. 2 years later, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell chose Diaz to be the permanent chief, sworn in January of 2023. He has held the job for less than 2 years. His departure coming amid a police department staffing crisis, several lawsuits alleging sexism and racial discrimination. Mayor Harrell previously announcing to the city council that he has tapped an outside investigation and outside investigators to look into these allegations. The police department has faced significant staffing shortages, as you know. Let's get to Mayor Bruce Harrell right now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here on short notice. I'm here today to make an announcement regarding the future of our outstanding Seattle Police Department, that Chief Adrian Diaz will be stepping aside to work on special assignments, and Chief Sue Rohrer will serve as interim police chief starting tomorrow. And I'd like to elaborate on the thought that went into this and sort of the process that went into this. And I want to start off by talking about Chief Diaz and the leadership that he's demonstrated to the city of Seattle. Under Chief Diaz's leadership, our police services met all but 2 of the federal consent decree provisions, and progress on the remaining 2, discipline, accountability, and crowd management, is progressing well. Together, we've launched a dual dispatch pilot with the new care department that I think many of you have followed. We've signed a new contract with the Seattle Police Officers Union and implemented a new recruitment and retention path. I'll rattle a few statistics that demonstrates Chief Diaz's leadership. Right now, homicide year over year is down 44%. Total reported crime is down 5%. Since the SPAW contract was approved, we've been receiving around 17 to 19 applications a day. And at the same time last year, we were at 5 to 6 applications a day. That's a 300% increase. Again, total reported crime continues to decrease this year, and the number of, quite frankly, the number of events we're seeing, the number of interactions that are positive we're seeing, as demonstrated by our application under the consent decree under this chief's leadership, has been outstanding. I first met Chief Diaz, who, by the way, served with the Seattle Police Department over 27 years. I should also mention that he's the president of the Police Executive Research Forum, PERF, which is a reputable organization that does some outstanding work. I first met Chief Diaz around 2007, 2008 in community, where he's established himself as a community-based kind of person. He has credibility in many organizations, particularly in underrepresented or black and brown communities, people of color. And I would be the first to say that his integrity, in my mind, is beyond reproach. And he is a friend, and I want to thank him for his service. We are now looking at the internal culture, of course, at the police department. We are trying to create a representative department of who we are at our best, a culture that we can stand in any city and say we are truly the best, realizing that there are cultural issues in darn near every police department in this country. We want to stand shoulder to shoulder with everyone, and it talks about race discrimination, gender discrimination, diversity, inclusivity, that we model our values. Recent allegations of discrimination and prejudice and harassment in the department as you well know, has caused me to appoint an independent and objective investigator to review these allegations and the case files that have been completed. This work continues to be underway. We support that work, and I also reviewed the report on the perspectives of our female officers and found their feedback incredibly important. So Chief Diaz and I had many discussions over the years, and I think he should be commended by suggesting that we put the needs of the city first. We put the needs of the police department first. He's agreed to set aside and to work on special projects and to realize the kind of culture change that we want perhaps could be better served with him stepping aside. We also want to make sure that anyone that has any complaints within the department do not have a threat of retaliation or any blowback, so to speak, while the investigation occurs. I want to personally, again, thank Chief Diaz for his service and for his continued dedication to the city of Seattle. And I look forward to continuing working with him in the police department in that regard. Sue Rohr is uniquely qualified right now to step into this position. She'll be, in my opinion, as mayor, an outstanding leader for our police department, focused on strengthening recruitment, advancing institutional culture change, and most importantly, working to create safety for all of our neighbors. In my conversation with Chief Diaz, somewhat of a personal nature, I just talked about the amount of litigation. It has to be somewhat distracting. He's a human being, and a good human being at that. And so the question in terms of, can you continue to evaluate or practice the type of excellence that we demand in this city while addressing the allegations? Going back to Sue Rohr, she has a history of leadership in modern policing, in culture change, in recruitment. As you well know, she served as King County Sheriff, the Executive Director of the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission, and a member of President Obama's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. She is an expert in recruiting, in national best practices in modern policing, and in public safety strategies rooted in a commitment to keeping all people safe. We should be honored that Chief Rohr has agreed to step up and serve the great people of Seattle. She's also a subject matter expert or advisor to the 30 by 30 initiative, which I think many of you know is a national effort to see women comprise 30% of police recruits by the year 2030. Her insight and leadership in this area will be critical as we work to recruit more women officers and ensure the department reflects our values as a city. Simply put, she's the right person at the right moment to lead SPD into its next chapter. And we are grateful that she put retirement on pause to help our city, help our department, help all of you listening to me right now. You will hear from Chief Diaz in a minute and Chief Rohr in a minute, but let me also make one thing clear. We will immediately commence a national search for the next permanent police chief. Chief Rohr has made it clear to me that she will not be a candidate for the permanent appointment. She will work with former Chief Kathy O'Toole that we are in consultation with to help identify a list of qualified semi-finalist candidates. Let me also say this, that culture change is very hard. I am intentionally looking outside of the department to perhaps tap some of the talent in other cities, people with lived experience that may help us change culture. I'm very proud of our Seattle Police Department. Let me make that clear. When you look at the use of force numbers, you look at what's going on with limited resources, they make me proud as a mayor. So we will commence a national search for a next permanent chief of police. The interim chief, Chief Rohr, would not apply for that position. And I feel very confident that we will have a chief that can help us change the culture and create the police department that we all could be so very, very proud of. And with that, I'm going to ask Chief Diaz to say a few words, and then Chief Rohr, and then I'll be more than happy to answer some questions. Chief Diaz, you have the floor, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. When I took on the role as chief of police over 4 years ago, I knew it would come with many challenges. The city was at a peak of a racial reckoning with protests and riots daily. There were calls to reimagine policing, a consent decree that had to be reset, a push to defund the police, violent crime on the rise, a culture that required change, and along with my command staff, I dove in to find solutions. In 4 years, we got back on track with the consent decree. I created Before the Badge, a nationally recognized program. I implemented a system to assess bias policing. I revamped our early intervention system, and I invested in officer wellness. Implemented an extensive plan for race and social justice. We reinvented crowd management, and we have nearly eliminated serious use of forces. Violent crime is down. Officer complaints are down significantly, and we're taking more guns off the street than ever before. We've recovered a number of drugs, and we've saved countless lives. We did this all with the help of creating a third public safety department as well. I've accomplished so much in the 4 years as chief, but there's more work to be done. I pass that challenge along to my predecessor, and I will continue to support the city as I transition to this new role. I want to thank the men and women of the Seattle Police Department for their hard work and the community that has supported us through every challenge. Thank you.
Well done, Chief.
What you saw was authenticity at its finest. I will say publicly and privately, Chief Diaz is a good human being, and he served us well. And I want to thank you for your continued leadership. You can't make up that kind of heart, and he's dedicated 27 years of public service to this city. And it is because of his commitment to this city, and I'll be just candid with all of you, as I only know how to be. He gets calls all the time to lead up other departments. He's committed to this city. And so I want to publicly thank you for your strong leadership, for your continued support. And with that, I will introduce Chief Rohr, Susan Rohr, and I gave your bio, but the mic is yours.
Thank you, sir.
Oh boy, that is, you can see why this is going to be a tough challenge, because I've got some big shoes to fill here. I am incredibly honored to be asked to step in and steer the ship as the mayor identifies a new chief. I just have a couple things that I want to say. First, to the men and women of the Seattle Police Department. You're going through some turbulence right now. I recognize that, and I want to do whatever I can to reassure you we're going to get through this. The first thing I'm going to do, first day in office, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I'm going to start by listening. I want to hear from the men and women of the Seattle Police Department what you're seeing, what your ideas are, what you need. I need to understand what you're all facing on the street. I also need you to be brutally honest and open with me so that I can understand. Armed with that information, I am going to do my very best in the short time that I'm here to get you the tools and support that you need to deliver good policing to the people we serve. The Seattle Police Department has incredible talent that sometimes doesn't get recognized, and my goal is to make sure that the community gets to see the great work that's being done and build on that some more. To the people of Seattle, I know there are communities that are really grieving with this change, and I understand that. I'm also going to start, Reverend Walden, by listening to people. I want to understand what we can do together to improve people's sense of safety and to gain your trust. I know that's going to be a tough road, but we're going to do it. It's going to take me a lot of time to do this because I know the residents and the businesses in Seattle are not one big monolithic block. Everybody's unique, every community's unique, and I'm going to take the time necessary to listen and learn what your needs are, what your ideas are, and what we can do together to continue improving safety. Finally, several people have asked me, why did I take this job? I was perfectly happy with my grandkids, doing a lot of work in the consulting world on trying to improve the profession of policing. But I have to say, I feel a little uncomfortable standing on the sidelines preaching about what leaders should do. And I decided it's time to put up or shut up. So I'm going to jump into the arena again, not for a long time, but long enough to try and help my brothers and sisters that I've watched from across the street for so many years. There's still a few people that are as old as me, still in the Seattle Police Department, and I'm gonna need a lot of help, and I'm gonna have to gain wisdom. Eric, I worked with your dad. I know your dad better than you, but I really am. I'm really excited to meet the men and women inside the Seattle Police Department that I don't yet know, because I know they have a lot of good ideas, and I know they've got good hearts, and I want to help them get those hearts out on display. So, Mayor, thank you again for your confidence. I won't let you down.
Thank you. Thank you.
sir.
Okay, before I take a few questions, I do want to recognize Senator John Lovick here. Thank you for your continued support for public safety and for a community. Thank you for being here. I want to recognize Councilmember Rob Sacco, who is here as an elected leader as well. And with that, I'll be more than happy to take some questions. Jim, I may help me navigate a few here. So,
Mayor, you said.
we're going to have a little order here. Just one sec. Just one sec. I heard Deborah in the back.
Okay. Natalie, go ahead.
I tried, Deborah.
Didn't see Deborah. I'm sorry. You're next, Deborah.
Mayor, first, two-part question. First, are there any other command staff changes that you can tell us about? And secondly, just with no formal firm leadership in place right now with these changes, can you tell the people, is Seattle safe? Talk about the public safety part of it.
Sure. Thanks for the question. First question, would there be command staff changes? We're discussing that now. Interim Chief Sue Rohr will make some decisions, and those discussions are occurring now. And number two, the city should have the ultimate faith in our police department. They are showing outstanding leadership. This is how you get better. How? You evaluate yourself. You hire people to give you feedback whether you want it or not. You have open dialogues with proven leaders. You put your own egos to the side and you say, we can do and we can be better. So the people of Seattle should feel good about this move. We don't make panic moves, we make strategic moves. And if there's one takeaway from this press conference, is I stand with this fine leader. That is his sacrifice for 27 years that we are building upon. So the people of Seattle should have the utmost confidence that we are trending in the right direction with the right policies and the right people, and we're going to keep on keeping on. Next question, please.
Okay. We'll go to Deborah.
Mayor Deborah Horn from Cairo 7. You've said glowing things about outgoing Chief Diaz. What was the straw that broke the camel's back? And then I do want to ask Sue Rohr a question as well.
Okay. So there was not one event, one straw that broke the camel's back, to use your description. My executive team and I, working with the police department, we are all about strategy and implementation. We're all about calibrating the issues of the city. And so, again, given the amount of litigation that has persisted, given by the interviews that we're having right now looking at one of the gender discrimination claims or harassment and hostile work environment, that we ask ourselves openly and honestly, number one, will the investigation, can we make sure that it is not impeded in any way, such that we have a good investigation, good recommendations? Might there be a threat of retaliation that we have to concern ourselves with? And if we're really committed to culture change as we are, should we make strategic changes? I actually signaled this about a month ago when asked the question openly. I said, I am always evaluating my department heads. The best thing a mayor could do is to make sure people at the right time are making the right decisions. And Chief Diaz is a human being. Certainly every time someone files a complaint against his department, it affects his ability to make some of the decisions. And so this was a collaborative process, but there was not one event that triggered anything. I want to make that very clear. So I will not comment on any litigation. I think that's an unwise move by any stretch of the imagination. There's a process for that. It's called due process for a reason. And so we'll let the litigation and the claims play out with an impartial trier fact looking at these issues. Go ahead.
Okay. We'll go to Ashley, and I'll come over to the side.
Mayor, given the number of lawsuits that came from former internal candidates for the job. Are you putting a full stop on no internal candidates applying for the top position, or are you going to consider anyone from within the department?
Good question, Ashley. I'll repeat it just so. Really, the question, as I understand it, is as we conduct a national search, am I putting a full stop on internal candidates and strictly looking at external candidates? And the answer is no, I'm not putting full stops on anyone to apply. If you believe you are qualified to apply, I use the term standard of excellence a lot in some of my speeches. If you believe you bring the standard of excellence that we want to see here in Seattle, you should apply. I did make it very clear that the kind of culture change that I'm looking at, one has to question whether that can come from an internal candidate. I'm just going to be candid with you. The city is no stranger to this. You could look at former Chief Gil Kurlikowski, who came from the outside. You could look at former Chief Kathleen O'Toole, who came from the outside. There has been a history in our city where to create the kind of change that we want, we have gone external. So I'm being open and candid there, and we'll see what candidates we get.
We'll go to Erica and then Chris.
Two
I have a feeling this is going to be a long day.
Just a long news.
Go ahead.
Two quick questions. I heard that John O'Neill and Eric Barnum were clearing out their desks today. Can you comment on whether they are out or changing positions? And then can you explain what special projects means?
Sure. I think everyone heard the question. Good? No? Erica heard rumors about Assistant Chiefs, Deputy Chief Barton and Assistant Chief O'Neill, John O'Neill, whether they're on administrative leave or whether they're going to be in their positions, and the second part was
What is special projects?
what does special projects mean? Very good. Okay. Very good. And will Chief Diaz change his salary? So let me take the second half first, since my brain works that way. Those details on salary and what special projects are being discussed right now, we'll have better clarity on that. That's a decision that we'll work out with the interim chief. I've made it very clear to the interim chief that we have 27 years of a strong police officer and chief here, and we want to be able to use that in some areas of concern, but we'll work those details out. With respect to the assistant chief status and deputy chief status, I'm not really positioned today to talk about their situations. First of all, that will be addressed by the new chief. And I want to make it clear, implicit in your question, we're asking her to run the department. There's no asterisks, parentheses or asterisks by Chief Roy. She is a proven national expert in this space. So we are confident that she will look at the issues, the personnel issues, the allegations, and make strategic decisions, and I trust her discretion there, so I'm not in a position to say how that's going to play out today.
Chris.
Mayor,
Yes, Chris.
you have obviously several active investigations into the police department, and you now have an interim chief. How do you possibly tell recruits to come to Seattle?
Well, we are. I want to repeat those numbers right now, because I know how you just like printing my sound bites. Print these numbers. There are applications, around 17, 19 applications a day, compared to 5 or 6 last year. And so to answer your question directly, Chris, we have a wonderful police department. That's how we recruit. We are on the cutting edge. We pay a competitive salary. We believe in social justice. We believe in community-based policing. We have a city-wide body of employees that embrace the values we believe in. And Seattle is a great city. Ignore the rain you see today, Chris. Okay? We're going to get a good weekend this weekend, and we have a marvelous hand that we're dealt as a city. So I ask police officers, be part of the solution. We're recruiting constantly. I recruit every time I see someone that might have an inkling toward public safety. If you look at many cities, they struggle with strong leadership at the top. As I said in my earlier remarks, Chief Diaz gets calls all the time. He's nationally respected as a police chief. So we tell the recruits, come help us improve the city, be part of the solution, and I feel very optimistic our recruiting numbers will continue to trend the way they are.
Mayor, I think Chief Rob.
Oh, please, yes.
So I'm going to try and live up to that title of national expert on recruiting here. I had 9 years at the police academy, and I spent a lot of time talking to new recruits coming in the door. And you can imagine, after the murder of George Floyd and the uprisings, people kept saying, why on earth would anybody want to be a cop today? And I sat with my recruits and I said, this is the best time to become a cop. We are on the verge of a change in eras. Don't you want to be part of pushing this new change? When I look at what's happening inside the Seattle Police Department right now, I know there is some turbulence, but there is some incredible work being done. And I have to do a shout out to my friend Senator Lovick. We worked tirelessly for 2 years to get state law changed so that we can implement flexible work schedules, which all the research across the nation internationally tells us that is our strongest recruiting tool for women, is to have flexible work schedules. I hope that we are able to work together as a team to make Seattle Police Department the most attractive department for women to come to work. Now, I want lots of people. We need lots of diversity. We need diversity of experience. But Seattle Police Department, if I can do it, is going to be the top recruiter for female recruits. This is going to be the place people want to come to work. I'm confident of that.
And we'll go to Amari. David.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Harrell. Omari Salisbury, Converge Media. So you had mentioned, I think, the number there on the sheet said that homicides year to year, now we're down 44%. Chief Diaz has over 2 decades just in community working with a lot of different groups and organizations. A lot of those organizations and community members are on the front line right now in violence disruption here in the city of Seattle, especially in the neighborhoods that we represent, the Central District and the South End of Seattle. We know that a lot of these organizations, members, community leaders, and everything else are being intentional in trying to fight back. And that's not the only reason why numbers are down, but it's a very important reason. What consideration are you taking in this transfer here into Interim Chief Rohr to keep these community connections in place that are very critical in driving down the homicide and violent crime rate in our city, and specifically the Central District and the South End? Interim Chief Rohr, my question for you is, these relationships are there. What is your plan now, coming in new as an insider, outsider, insider, to be able to gain the trust that it's just not transferable from Chief Diaz to yourself? What are your plans coming into our community?
So I'll take a first stab at that, Omar. Thank you for the question. It's a critical question, and I want to concede and agree with your conclusion implicit in your question. That is, they are community-based organizations that are coming from geography, coming from homes, coming from families, coming from communities, many of whom have been traumatized, have experienced violence, helping us address the issue of violence. They are valuable partners. That's embedded in everything that we do. It does not center around one person, by the way, although you have been a remarkable leader in this space. It cannot center around one person. It has to be embedded in everything that we do. So we remain committed to this approach. It's a smart approach. It's an effective approach. And I know specifically the people doing this work, and I am incredibly impressed by their, not only their heart, but their actual actions, what they're out doing. We know near Rainier Beach, for example, that some of them put their own lives in harm's way in trying to be violence interrupters, experience violence by themselves around the Safeway at Rainier Beach. So we feel confident that this great work will continue. Chief Rohr, if you'd like to say anything in that regard.
Sir, I appreciate you bringing that up, because you're absolutely right. The Seattle Police Department cannot drive the crime rate down by itself. We cannot do that without partnering with the community. I'm extremely grateful that there's already groups in place, there's leaders in place. I've read in the newspaper about the work you've done, the sacrifices that your teams have made, and I am very anxious to sit down with you and make concrete plans about how do we continue this relationship and can we increase it. I was the gang unit commander in King County a long time ago when gangs were first becoming a problem, and one of the things that I learned firsthand is we cannot do this without the community and people who are inside of the community telling us what's going on, telling us what we need to know. We can't do it without you. So 100%, we're going to continue to work with you. I appreciate the work you've already done, and I hope we can continue going forward.
Okay, before I take another question, council members, I see two council members. Would you guys be so kind as to come on up here? Councilmember Wu, Councilmember Saka, come on up here so not standing in the back in the cheap seats. All right. There you go. That's our one Seattle at its finest right there. Thank you for attending this press conference, both of you. Jamie?
Yep, David.
Hey, Mayor, why not let the investigation run its course before making this decision? And you know, I know that in this last certain round of searches, maybe it was sort of difficult to get qualified applicants or people that we felt comfortable leading. The Seattle Police Department was going to be different this time.
Good. I hope everyone heard the question, so I'll answer the question and sort of repeat it. So, why not let the investigation that MFR are conducting before we make such a change? As an experienced attorney, playing a role in many investigations and through a discovery process, you do not need it to be complete before you reach certain conclusions. We have talked to the investigator about preliminarily on, well, how's it going, that kind of conversation. We concluded as an executive team, and I don't make these decisions in a vacuum, we decided as an executive team, if our goal is to achieve a standard of excellence in police, in safety, and changing culture, what makes sense right now? We do not need to wait for the termination of an investigation. We do not need to evaluate that. And if we do it right, and by that I mean making sure that Chief Diaz is afforded his due process, he comes with a lot of community support that he has earned. I want to make that clear. Support that he has earned inside the department and outside the department. That we do not need the completion of a full investigation to reach the conclusion that we're about trying to move forward, and I have a sense of urgency in creating the safe city that I demand we have. That's why we didn't wait. Second part of the question I forgot. You're going to have to help me out again.
Seattle's ability to attract recruits or people.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I would disagree with your premise. I think with the last search we had 3 outstanding candidates, and I signaled, I encouraged Chief Diaz to apply. Some people might have read that in the recruiting world as, well, I'm not going to apply against a strong, effective internal candidate. So, you know, the recruiting world is not rocket science. The first thing people want to know is, it is truly an open, transparent process, and do I have a shot? And they do. So I'm very confident using our ability to network, and again, I think I mentioned in my opening remarks that former Chief Kathleen O'Toole will help us as well. And to be candid with you, I talk to mayors across the country all the time. And so, believe it or not, people love Seattle. People would like to come here to this great city. I could brag about this place all I want. So we feel very confident we're going to get a top-notch candidate. And I look forward to it.
So just a few weeks ago, Mayor, you said that you wanted to allow for due process, and now we're told...
I'm sorry.
Just a few weeks ago, you said that you wanted to allow for due process for the investigation to go through, and now we're all hearing almost overnight that, you know, Chief Diaz is stepping down. So what changed?
Nothing changed. I thought I answered that question earlier. Let me say it in a better way. For the last month or so, even maybe before that, we are constantly asking ourselves, how can we be better? How can we do better? Not just the police department. I have north of 41 departments that I ask the same question to at our cabinet meetings. I'm always evaluating. I'm evaluated every day. My executive team are evaluated every day. So no one event sparked there was no epiphany that said we have to make a change. It was a result of deliberative thought, strategic thinking, a commitment to excellence, and we decided to make a leadership change. So that's go ahead.
Can you talk more What rank will he be?
Oh, I think I didn't answer that earlier too. So we are discussing that now. So I'm sure there'll be some follow-up requests on that. And so we will, again, I want to capitalize on his remarkable experiences, being a 27-year vet within the police department. I want to capitalize on Interim Chief Rohr's expertise in leading and see where there's a good fit. And I don't want to prematurely thwart that right now. So that's a discussion that we're having right now.
Lauren and then Guy.
So 2 questions. First and foremost, unfinished business. What is going to happen moving forward with Daniel Otter's case, since there was an announcement scheduled to happen soon? And to the emotional side of this, clearly, like, you can see the emotion in both of your eyes. Was this the hardest decision you've had to make as mayor?
Thanks for that question. Dealing with Officer Otterer, that again, we are going to, the Chief Rohr will be fully briefed on everything. I'm sure she is aware of the situation. She will make the decision as the process allows. We don't thwart that decision, and I expect she'll make that decision. I don't want to say in a few weeks, but you'll make it in a few weeks. No, I think in a few weeks. I'm going to say that's usually historically. Let's talk about the second part of your question. I don't know the answer of this. I lead with this. It is, I believe in Chief Diaz. He's first and foremost a friend. And I believe he's extremely talented as well. And he did inherit a culture. He inherited a culture. A lot of the issues, a lot of the allegations certainly predates his tenure as a chief. So all of decisions that I make, and it doesn't even have to be at that level, by the way, it could be a mid-range manager, and whenever there's anything that resembles an adverse employment action, yeah, these are tough decisions. I have an HR background, and did a lot of work in employment law. These are very emotional. So yes, it's a very emotional decision, but I continue to believe that Chief Diaz will still add incredible value to this city. And I'm not ashamed to say that he is a friend. So, emotional, yes. But I believe it's the right thing to do for the betterment of the city. And again, I want to thank Chief Rohr for stepping up.
Take a few more questions, and I want to prioritize people who haven't asked questions yet. So I guess I've got next.
Hi, Mayor Harrell.
Hello.
This is a time of reckoning for the Seattle Police Department. Will you now finally apologize for the 2020 protests and how the Seattle Police Department brutalized many protesters and members of the public? And how can you reassure them that we won't see more excessive use of force on such a big scale the next time we have a lot of protests in the street?
Thank you for the question. So with respect to the 2020 protests, on behalf of the city of Seattle as the highest executive, I do apologize if any of the actions of the city employees, the police department, violated people's constitutional rights. I was on the other side of this incident as a lawyer for many years, protecting people's right to protest, right to speak. I was fully committed and made sure I hired the right people that aligned themselves with those same values. I was just born about 8 blocks from here. I've seen some of the best times and some of the worst times. Those are painful memories for a lot of people. And so I'm confident that once again, if we talk about these openly, talk about our soft underbelly, so to speak, where we are vulnerable, that's the only way we can get better. And so we are very bullish on data and use of force incidents. You may recall that I was the author of the racial profiling bill to make sure that certain people are not profiled in terms of who are charged and who are prosecuted. So we will remain committed to this work. Again, thank you for your question, and I feel pretty excited about the future for us.
Go to Connor, and then Jonathan, and then Matt.
I actually had a question for Interim Chief Rohr. What are your top priorities during your time with the Seattle Police Department?
Well, I know for right now, for the first couple of weeks, it's going to be entirely focused on listening to people, meeting with people face to face, both internally and in the community. I'm going to rely on Chief Diaz to help me make sure that I reach out to all the community members that he's been working with directly. So I'm going to be doing a lot of listening. I'm also going to be looking for opportunities to start work on our flexible work schedules, because recruiting is, right now, it's a critical need. And that's something that I can do relatively quickly that I think will have a very quick impact. The recruiting numbers are starting to get better. The contract has been resolved. So I want to grab that wave of momentum and keep building with it. But really, truly, I'm going to say two things. I need to listen and learn, because I don't have all the information I need to make decisions yet. I need to talk to the people who are on the street, to the people who live and work in the community.
Mayor, with these ongoing allegations, you and your team clearly made the assessment to move on from Chief Diaz. At the same time, if this becomes a distraction, why not just move on from Chief Diaz? And how do you make sure that his presence doesn't cause problems for the rest of SPD from moving on and taking this fresh start, fresh step?
Thanks for the question. Because I believe that Chief Diaz has incredible value to add to this city, that I think he has life experiences and leadership experiences that are still an asset that we want to capitalize upon. I believe he remains committed to protecting people in this city that is so critical to this kind of work. And for those reasons, we would love for him to stay on and lend us his expertise. I'm not going to mince words there.
Two questions, one for the mayor, one for the chief. Mayor, I think it's following up on Deborah and David's question. We're still looking for that straw. And David asks, why not let the investigations complete? So I have a political question for you. In 2 years from now, you're going to seek re-election. Did you not want to have this specter of SPD and its problems going into this election, into your re-election campaign? Was that is that part of the decision?
Yeah, fair question. No. No. I mean, that's my answer. I make decisions based on logic, strategy, the need for effectiveness. I've been elected 4 times in this city. I've been around the block a few times. The needs for this city outweigh a political agenda. We believe this is the right thing to do. And again, I want to thank these two fine human beings in back of me for helping me lead this city. My style of leadership are to hire and be around strong people. I have a team. I try to push my team. They have to keep up with me. So it wasn't a political decision. It's a decision we think is in the best interest of this city and in the best interest of this department.
And a follow-up with Chief Diaz.
Chief, you are the president of the PERF, and you have a lot of connections through that, as well as all the connections the mayor had talked about. Do you hope to be a police chief in another city somewhere?
You know what, right now I think it's just taking a little bit of time for myself. I've had some medical issues as well that I've had some bouts with some lung issues that have gone on for over a year because I think I work too much. So I'll be able to assess that and be able to deal with that. But I do think there's still a lot to offer, and I want to make sure that the city gets everything that I want to be able to help out with. And then I'll assess what it looks like for maybe another city. I don't know. But right now, I think it's also just kind of taking a little bit of time for myself. So thank you.
We'll go to Andy, and I think John, did you have a question?
Andy from Public Cola. I've been talking to Seattle police officers, and you talked about a culture of retribution, and that there's been accusations.
I don't think I've used that term, culture of retribution, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
I didn't talk about it at all, did I? Did I say a retribution?
Retaliation.
Oh, retaliation.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, there you go.
And so, there's talk of the OPA investigation system being used against people in retaliation. Will you also consider looking at leadership of OPA and OIG as you're looking at the top leadership and making changes?
Yeah, fair question. Right now, I am not. What we are looking at, however, is the whole accountability system. Is it effective? Not so much worried about the personnel of the people. They are pretty effective leaders. But the system, it's a fair question to ask, can we make it better? And so I'm asking my executive team to examine that. But it's not something we're working on like tomorrow, the next day. That's not on the chopping block, so to speak, right now. It's a fair question to have with the city council as they look at the budget as well. To address the budget issue that many of you have written about, we do have to look at the way we do business in this city in every aspect of our operations. We have to be more effective. We have to be efficient. So those two, organization and accountability, are not beyond that kind of evaluation. Yes.
Question. When did you first approach Chief Rahr about this possibility of doing this job?
When did we first approach Shuar? So let me lead up to the direct answer. Within the last month or so, our executive team were looking at, as I tried to describe earlier, how should we handle this to be the most to create the most effective department that we can. I believe there were discussions with Chief Rahr maybe a week or so ago about that as a possibility. And we put that in our think tank, and we were ecstatic that someone of her caliber would be interested in serving the city of Seattle, and we continued the discussions for the last week.
Do you have a timeline of finding the next permanent chief?
The timeline for the next chief, we will start next week the process by which we begin a search, and I hope to, I'm going to get in trouble on this one, but I'm going to say 4 to 6 months, and I'm going to ask some of my people today. I get in trouble, and I'm going to say 4 to 6 months. I got some confidence there. So, this process, typically, the historical practice is it could take around 4 to 6 months, and so that's sort of the time frame we're looking at. I'll answer. What will Chief Diaz's title now be? So again, the details of that, we're having discussions right now with the interim chief, and we'll be more than happy to provide you information when that is worked out. Yeah. TBD, to be determined.
That launched yesterday.
Yeah. We're not, there's no way we will thwart in any way, interfere with any ongoing complaints that have been made recently or not so recently. Those processes will continue, and we encourage the due process implications that come about when these things occur. So we're always supportive of due process rights.
There's been a lot of discussion over this press conference about sort of praising Chief Diaz, and you've mentioned the need to recruit women through things like flexible schedules. Can you respond to, without specifically getting into the allegations, do you have concern about the culture of SPD and allegations of a culture of misogyny, and how will we address that?
I'll be honest with you, I have concerns about the culture of all police departments. I think we are all trying to do better. I think it's a natural thing that happens when you have a profession that is dominated by one gender for, half a century, 3/4 of a century, and making those transitions are really hard. And so I don't think Seattle Police Department is worse or better than others. I think we have work to do in every department. One of the reasons I was very anxious to jump in is I think the Seattle Police Department is open to doing something meaningful and implementing a systemic change, because we can keep playing whack-a-mole every time there's an allegation here or there, but until we change the system, we're not going to have meaningful change. And that was one of the things that really drew me to this opportunity, is to actually do something that's going to matter. You know that because you've been to my house.
I have indeed. And so I want to ask, you've looked across the water, Lake Washington at Seattle. Is it important, Mayor, that the chief of police, the person who takes the job permanently, lives in the city of Seattle?
It would be ideal, but I believe there's legal restrictions on requiring a person to live in a certain jurisdictions or showing somehow a prejudice towards someone based on their residence. I believe through HR law in practice you cannot require that, but it certainly would be ideal for them to know the people of this city, the culture of this city, and to certainly be a resident. I'll take some more questions. I'm just getting warmed up, so I'm good. Keep going, keep going.
Interim Chief
I'm going to take over again the sign of who gets so no more jumping in, David.
My understanding is it will be because the highest rank that Chief Diaz had was lieutenant, unless you make a proactive decision, he would then go back to lieutenant. So do you have intention to?
So you've been listening live to a fairly lengthy news conference that is continuing. Adrian Diaz, 27-year veteran of the Seattle Police Department, out after 4 years as interim, then permanent chief. Mayor Harrell saying that Chief Diaz is a good human being that, in his mind, has integrity beyond reproach. Diaz has agreed to put the department and the city first and has agreed to step aside and move into a new role, yet undefined.
Good afternoon, everybody. When I took on the role as chief of police over 4 years ago, I knew it would come with many challenges. The city was at a peak of a racial reckoning with protests and riots daily. There were calls to reimagine policing, a consent decree that had to be reset, a push to defund the police, violent crime on the rise, a culture that required change, and along with my command staff, I dove in to find solutions. In 4 years, we got back on track with the consent decree. I created Before the Badge, a nationally recognized program. I implemented a system to assess bias policing. I revamped our early intervention system, and I invested in officer wellness. Implemented an extensive plan for race and social justice. We reinvented crowd management, and we have nearly eliminated serious use of forces. Violent crime is down. Officer complaints are down significantly, and we're taking more guns off the street than ever before. We've recovered a number of drugs, and we've saved countless lives. We did this all with the help of creating a third public safety department as well. I've accomplished so much in the 4 years as chief, but there's more work to be done. I passed that challenge along to my predecessor, and I will continue to support the city as I transition to this new role. I want to thank the men and women of the Seattle Police Department for their hard work and the community that has supported us through every challenge. Thank you.
Well done, Chief.
So the mayor saying there was actually not one straw that broke the camel's back, given that litigation that we have been reporting on that has been persistent. He wanted to make sure that those investigations were going to be unhampered and that there would be no chance of, in the mayor's words, retaliation. Bottom line, the mayor says he's looking for an internal cultural change. Former King County Sheriff Sue Rahr has been named the interim chief, uniquely qualified. And joining us live now is the former King County Sheriff, John Urquhart. First of all, your reaction to what is a major shakeup in the Seattle Police Department.
It is a major shakeup. It's surprising. I have to give kudos to the mayor for stepping in and making this kind of a change in the midst of all these allegations, these lawsuits. That usually doesn't happen. Usually politicians want to wait, and they wait, and they wait, and they wait. Mayor Harrell wasn't willing to do that. He came in and made the changes early on to fix whatever he perceived as the problems.
Creating a high-paying position, it appears, for Diaz, despite the allegations of harassment and other issues that he's facing $5 million suit for. Were you surprised at the high praise given the situation?
Yeah, not necessarily. I know Bruce pretty well, and he likes to do the right thing. I think he's loyal to his people. Clearly, it was partially, at least, a face-saving measure for Chief Diaz. But also, if you take Bruce at his word, he thinks that Chief Diaz has a lot to offer the Seattle Police Department. And I'm sure he probably does. So I think that's probably a good move.
He called Surar the right person, the right choice, at the right time to change the culture of the police department. You worked with former Sheriff Surar, now Chief Surar. What can you tell us about her and her leadership?
I did. I worked for her for many, many years, as a matter of fact. One thing I will say about her is she doesn't suffer fools very well. So I can see her going in there and making some changes, not being afraid to make changes as she sees the Seattle Police Department does, primarily in the command staff, because that's who she's going to have to work with. That's number one. Number two, she wrote an article in The Atlantic probably 2 or 3 years ago, and she talked about cultures of police departments and how important they were, as she did today. What she also said in that article, she didn't really realize how important culture was when she was sheriff. But since then, she's had an epiphany, and she really understands that culture is the number one thing that we have to have in a successful police department, and it's also the hardest thing to change when you have a police department. But she realizes that, so that means if anybody can do it, it's going to be Sue.
She said she's going to focus on listening. We know that, as the mayor said, she's part of the 30 by 30, have increasing female recruitment by 30% by the year 2030. With so much focus on diversity, DEI, I think a lot of the rank and file, I've talked to some who have been with the department, the Seattle Police Department specifically, for years and years, and one of their biggest complaints is being constantly passed over for promotion because of DEI, passed over for women who are less qualified, they say, or people of color who are less qualified. So in terms of the rank and file, with only 13% of the department being women, how are the rest of the officers feeling when we hear the new chief saying, I'm focusing on diversifying and getting more women in?
Well, they're probably not going to like it, but too bad. The only way a police department can be successful, depending on how you define successful, is if they are a mirror of the community. And police departments, including the Seattle Police Department, including the Sheriff's Office, are not mirrors of the community. They are mostly white males. They look exactly like me. And that has to change. And the sooner the rank and file realizes that, the better they're going to be able to accept that. The key is how leaders go about making those changes. And if the changes are seen to be unfair, then they're going to get pushback. And that's the problem that she's going to have. As for listening, what new leader doesn't say they're not going to be listening, so I don't put a lot of stock in that aspect of it.
One commander on the news today described the situation to me this way, calling it a broken bureaucracy with broken people that will take a generation to repair.
I don't know, because I've never worked at the Seattle Police Department, but I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't accurate. Most police departments are going to take a generation to repair, depending on your definition of repair. My definition is, does the community accept us? Does the community accept the job that we do? Are we successful in doing that job? Biggest problem I ever had was keeping the support of the community. And that's the same thing that now Chief Harrell is going to have. How does she keep that support, especially when Chief Diaz in the community was so well liked? That's going to be a tough nut to crack.
And it's not been confirmed, but we have unconfirmed reports from people within the Seattle Police Department that some of the top command staff is also being replaced, or at least they've cleared out their desks and may be reassigned or may be leaving. So really, most of the top leadership, it appears, is in transition. So how should the public be feeling about public safety when they already have so many concerns about feeling safe in their communities?
I don't think this particular move has anything to do with public safety. This is the cops on the street that are doing their job. They're going to continue to do their job. They're going to be successful at doing that job. Public doesn't need to worry about that.
Well, let's talk about this then. Over the last 5 years, the department's down more than, 700 officers?
That's what they need
How are you going to recruit more officers when this is the situation in leadership?
That's what they need to be worried about. Are people going to be willing to come to the Seattle Police Department with all this turmoil, with everything going on? Sarah Nelson, the city council president, released numbers for 2023. According to her, at least, 1,900 applications came into the Seattle Police Department in 2023. 70% of those passed. So that's 1,400 people to pick from. That's a tremendous success from a recruiting standpoint. They ought to be able to fill their numbers from the number of people that want to be a Seattle cop. But what she didn't talk about was the bottleneck, which is the State Police Academy. State Police Academy, they only take 30 people a month in 2023
So-
from all over the state.
Supply not keeping up with demand.
That's exactly right.
In light of what has been, frankly, an exodus of the police department.
Every police department is in demand for new officers. They've got to be able to train them. Now, this year, 2024, finally, they have 2 satellite academies in other spots of the state to relieve some of that bottleneck. We'll see if it helps.
Briefly, in 30 seconds, what happens next? What should we look for?
You should look for whatever changes Sue's going to make at the command staff. If any part of Seattle Police Department is broken, it's probably the command staff.
But have confidence in the change.
Yes.
He says with hesitation. Sheriff
It's
John
tough.
Urquhart, honestly, it's such a pleasure to have you here, especially with your insight and having worked with now Chief Sue Rahr for so long. You know exactly what the city is getting in terms of her leadership. We are so grateful for your time and your insight today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Very much. And we just want you to know that we are going to have, of course, team coverage on what has been a major shakeup within the Seattle Police Department and reaction to it. We appreciate your time at home for joining us for this special report. This is King 5 News. Back to our regular programming.